Hello and welcome to the first video in the series about JavaScript that I'm starting. If you are new to programming with this language or need to improve your knowledge, this will be the right tutorial for you. Let's get started. So, what is JavaScript? JavaScript is a high-level, dynamic, and interpreted programming language. When we say high-level, it means that the language is quite similar to human language, making its syntax easier to understand. It's considered dynamic because it offers great flexibility in how variables are defined and manipulated. For example, you can assign a numeric value to a variable and later change it to a string or even a Boolean value without getting type errors. This is because the type of a variable is determined at runtime, when its value is evaluated. Finally, when we say JavaScript is an interpreted language, we mean that JavaScript code is executed directly by an interpreter line by line without requiring an explicit prior compilation step. An interpreter is a program that takes source code, in this case JavaScript code, and executes it directly, translating each line into machine understandable instructions. This process happens at runtime, meaning while the program is running. Like most programming languages, JavaScript requires two main components to function: a library, which contains a set of functionalities and methods that allows to perform actions like manipulating strings or doing basic mathematical calculations. The second component is a host environment where we can run our code. Since JavaScript's core library includes a minimal set of APIs for basic tasks, the host environment provides additional complementary functionalities. These include APIs for capturing user input, printing content to the console or graphically, and more. By default, JavaScript's primary host environments were web browsers like Google Chrome, but since the release of Node.js in 2010, the operating systems have also become a viable host environment for JavaScript. These developments open up the possibility of not only creating web content, but also performing tasks such as reading and writing files, sending and receiving data over a network, and handling and serving HTTP requests. Let's jump straight into action and explore the different ways to create and run JavaScript code. We will start with the most basic method, using snippets in a web browser. So if you have Google Chrome installed on your computer, just open it. We need to access to the developer tools console using the key combination function and F12 if you are on Mac, or simply F12 if you are on Windows. But also you can access by right-clicking on the content area and selecting the option Inspect. You will see that the browser has been divided in two sections. Go to this section on the right, and in the option at the top, select the Sources tab. Then click on this double arrow button here and select the option Snippets. Then click on New Snippet. Let's name this snippet as chapter-1. For JavaScript files, we need to add the extension .js and press enter, and that's it. We can now start playing with JavaScript code. Let's start by declaring our first variable and printing it to the console. To declare or define a variable, we begin by using one of the keywords available in the language. One of these is let. We will talk about it detailed later on. So for now, let's start by typing let space followed by the name you want to give to the variable. For now, let's say x and end the line with a semicolon. Next, we will assign a value to this variable. Let's do that in the next line. We will say that our x variable will have a value of 0. We do this using the assignment operator equals and the value 0 and with a semicolon again. And now let's print the value of our variable. And to do this, we use the console.log method, which is provided by the browser. So the syntax of this method is console.log, open parentheses, put inside the variable and end with a semicolon again. And now we need to save changes in our snippet. We can do this by going to the bottom right section here. You can press the play button or just use key combination Control Enter or Command Enter on Mac. And you'll see that a new section appears in the browser. This is the console section where we can view the result of executing our code. We see here the value of our variable, 0. Actually, let me increase a little bit the size of the console. And that's how we have essentially built our first block of code. Actually, let me increase a bit the size of the DevTools. And we will continue playing with the code. We could say our variable has the value of 1. Save changes, run again the code, and we'll see the result here. By clicking on this icon, we clear the console and we can run it again to see the last result. We can continue checking the different formats and values that JavaScript supports. We have integers. We can also use real numbers like this one. Also strings. Strings should wrap in double or single quotes. So now we can type hello world. We can have also Boolean values like true or false. Another value is null, which means no values. We can use also undefined, which is another special value like null. And those are the most common values on JavaScript. There are other very important data types in JavaScript that we will also explore in depth later, called objects and arrays. Objects are a collection of key value pairs and have the following syntax. We declare a variable let and then name it person space equals to open curly braces, press enter, and let's use name as the key, followed by a colon, space, and let's assign it a value of a string, which will be John. If we want to add another key value pair, we end the current line with a comma, press enter, and let's add another key called age, and let's give a value of 25. As you can see, we use curly braces to enclose the definition of an object. And to access the value of an object's key, we use the object's name followed by a dot and then the key name. If we execute this snippet again, we will see that it returns the value of the key name. Another important data structure is arrays. So arrays are a collection of ordered values that are sequentially indexed within a variable. We can store multiple types of values inside an array. Let's declare another variable called my array, and it will be equals to. The values are stored inside square brackets and separated by commas. Let's add a series of numbers. We could say 2, 5, 6, 8. And to access one of these values, we use its sequence identifier known as an index. Although we don't see it explicitly inside the array, each element has an index that represents its position within the array, starting from 0. You could visualize it like this. 2 has index 0, 5 has index 1, 6 has index 2, 8 has index 3, and so on. So if I want to access to one of these elements, for instance, the element 2, I'm going to use its index to access to this value. So you are going to say my array, open square brackets, and pass the index value this way. If I save changes, let's clear the console and run again the program. You see that we're getting here the value of 2. If I want to access to the last element, remember it starts from 0, 1, 2, 3. I need to put here the index 3, save changes, Run the snippet again, and you see the value of 8, which is the last element of the array. Arrays come with a set of methods that allows to access their properties or perform actions. For instance, if we want to determine the length of an array, I mean how many elements it contains, we can do so using the length property, using the name of the array dot length. If I save changes, let me clear the console, run again the snippet, you see the value of 4, which is the size of the element, or the number of element it contains. Also, if I want to add a new element to the array, I can do this by using the method push. So again, with the number of the variable that push, open parentheses, and we're going to pass here the new value. Let's pass 10, and let me print again the value of the length so you can see the difference. Save changes, run again, and you'll see now the length is 5. So now the last element of the array will be, remember, 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4 with the new value. So let's put here 4, save changes, run again, and you'll see a new value. Arrays are flexible structures. I could create my own custom methods, for instance, that get first element. This method, of course, doesn't exist within the array methods, but I can create it this way. I'm going to say it's a function. By the way, this is another topic that we are going to see later, but for now the structure of a function is this way, and this method is going to return the value of the first element of this array. So I save changes. Now I can call this method with parentheses, save changes, run again, and you see I'm getting the first element. You can see that I'm not using anymore the semicolon at the end of the line. This is of course optional, but we'll see a couple of exceptions in which we will need to use a semicolon to let JavaScript know when a line is ending. But for now, let's continue with this way. I want to end this video with a couple of concepts that are very important in JavaScript and are expressions. So actually we could see what expression is with the previous example we did. So an expression is, well, a small piece of code that produces or generates a value. Simple as that. So we could say that a simple mathematical operations will be an expressions because it will produce a value. So let me clear the console, and actually let's work directly in the console. So I could say 2 plus 2 will be an expression because you already see in the console that I'm getting the response for this operation, which is 4. If I press enter, I'm going to receive the result of this operation. Similar to a subtraction, so this will be also an expression. And also from our previous variable array, we have the method myArray.length, which is another expression because it returns the value of 5, which is the size of the array. And also from our previous exercises, we have some other example of an expressions, for instance, the object. So when I say person.name, this is also another expression because it returns the value of the key name. Another important concept is statements. Statements are complete code instructions that perform an action, but unlike expressions, they don't produce a value. An example of a statement is when we declare a variable and assign it to a default value. Let me clear the console, and actually let's work directly in the console. So for instance, if I declare, let's declare another variable, my var equals to 12. So you can see that the action performed in this state is creating a variable myVar and storing 12 in it. However, on its own, this statement doesn't return a value. Only expressions produce a value. That's why when we press enter, you see that I'm not getting any value, just undefined. Only expressions produce a value. That's why when we access to the variable myVar and press enter, you'll see that it returns the value, but myVar is considered as expression, not a statement. Statement is this part of the code when we declare the variable. And another example of statements are functions, like the one that we create previously. Let's create another function to print a console log. So console.log, let's put a string here that says hello from function, close the string with quotes and close parentheses. And again, this is a statement. If I press enter, I don't going to return any value, but only when I call the function by this way is when I receive a value. So remember, this is a statement and this is an expression. So don't worry, we will dive deeper into these topics later. This is just a brief introduction where I wanted to give you an overview of some of the most important concepts in the language. For now, let's wrap up the video here and I'll see you soon in the next topic.